Hello, good morning. Today is December 3rd, 2020. What is the importance of this day? Today is the World Disability Day. It is celebrated as the International Day of Persons with Disabilities, IDPD. According to World Health Organization, the total world population in 2020 is about 7.8 billion. Out of this 7.8 billion, 1 billion people are having some form of disability. This accounts for almost 15% of the total population. Regarding the disabilities, there are two types of disabilities, visible or the specified disability and the invisible disabilities. As per UNESCO, during the COVID pandemic, the disabled people are the most affected people when compared to normal people. This is due to isolation, disconnection, disrupted routines, and diminished services of the disabled people. Actually, the pandemic has deepened the inequalities for the disabled. And now we can look into the UN theme for last year, 2019. It is promoting the participation of persons with disabilities, their leadership, taking action on the 2030 development agenda. Now we can look into this year's theme. It is 2020 theme, that is building back better towards a disability inclusive, accessible and sustainable post-COVID-19 world. Now, UNESCO has marked the International Day of Persons with Disabilities, that is IDPD, a week-long program extending from November 25th to December 3rd, 2020 under the UN theme. We have already discussed the UN theme for 2020. UNESCO also organizes a global awareness raising campaign. Tell our stories, enable our rights onto official social media channels focusing on the impact of COVID on persons with disabilities. World Health Organization also joins the partners UN and UNESCO, that is, to celebrate this day as a day for all. World Health Organization also opines that almost everyone will be temporarily or permanently impaired at some point of life. Now we can look into few key messages. Disability is a part of human experiences. World Health Organization recognizes that if health system does not include the people with disability, then the standard of health and well-being will not reach the maximum. People with disability have amongst the most vulnerable population during the COVID-19 outbreak. This is mainly due to various barriers of health, social, environmental, and discriminative attitudes of the others, inaccessible infrastructures, etc. The COVID-19 pandemic provides a unique opportunity to build back better of our health system so that they are more inclusive and responsive to the needs and human rights of people experiencing disability in all their diversity. And finally, the countries needs to shift towards a service delivery system rooted in the communities for people with disability. This is the message of UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres.
The COVID-19
Now we can look
crisis is
into the
affecting every
words
aspect
of
our
UN
societies,
Secretary General.
revealing the extent of exclusion that the most marginalized members of society experience. Today, I would like to highlight how the pandemic is affecting the world's 1 billion people with disabilities. Even under normal circumstances, persons with disabilities are less likely to access education, healthcare and income opportunities or participate in the community. This is exacerbated for those in humanitarian and fragile contexts. People with disabilities are more likely to live in poverty, and they experience higher rates of violence, neglect, and abuse. The pandemic is intensifying these inequalities and producing new threats. Today, we are launching a report that recommends a disability-inclusive response and recovery for everyone. People with disabilities are among the hardest hit by COVID-19. They face a lack of accessible public health information, significant barriers to implement basic hygiene measures, and inaccessible health facilities. If they contract COVID-19, many are more likely to develop severe health conditions which may result in death. The share of COVID-19 related deaths in care homes, where older people with disabilities are overrepresented, ranges from 19% to an astonishing 72%. In some countries, healthcare rationing decisions are based on discriminatory criteria such as age or assumptions about quality or value of life based on disability. We cannot let this continue. We must guarantee the equal rights of people with disabilities to access healthcare and life-saving procedures during the pandemic. Persons with disabilities who faced exclusion in employment before this crisis are now more likely to lose their job and will experience greater difficulties in returning to work. Yet only 28% of people with significant disabilities have access to benefits, and only 1% in low-income countries. People with disabilities, particularly women and girls, face a greater risk of domestic violence, which has surged during the pandemic. I urge governments to place people with disabilities at the center of COVID-19 response and recovery efforts, and to consult and engage with people with disabilities. Persons with disabilities have valuable experience to offer of thriving in situations of isolation and alternate working arrangements. Looking to the future, we have a unique opportunity to design and implement more inclusive and accessible societies to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Last year, I launched the United Nations Disability Inclusion Strategy to ensure the UN system is doing its part. The strategy represents the UN's commitment to achieve transformative and lasting change. When we secure the rights of people with disabilities, we are investing in our common future.
Now we can look into a few facts about COVID infection when it affects the disabled people.
disability inclusion is a fundamental human right.
Now moving to
When
this year's message from UN Secretary
we move our
General.
world closer to upholding the values and principles of United Nations Charter. Early in my tenure, I commissioned a comprehensive review of our performance on disability inclusion. I highlighted some examples of good practices, but mostly gaps, big gaps across all our work from headquarters to the field. That is why I launched the United Nations Disability Inclusion Strategy last year. It is a strategy of action to raise the standards of our performance on disability inclusion across the board, and action to bring about the transformative change we need. 1 year on, we can see that the strategy has catalyzed positive action, but there is still a long way to go. I want the United Nations to be an employer of choice for persons with disabilities. I want our humanitarian, development and peace operations to fully recognize and advance the rights of persons with disabilities. And I want the United Nations to be fully accessible for one and all. I welcome the initiative of the Staff Union to highlight the successes and challenges of persons with disabilities and what our organization is doing to advance inclusion. Our goal is clear: a world in which all people, including persons with disabilities, can enjoy equal opportunities, have a full say in decision-making, and truly benefit from economic, social, political, and cultural life. Thank you.
For tackling these issues, we need certain actions. It is considered that these actions, if we can enforce it, it will be very good for the disabled people. First, we have to strengthen the existing national legislation and policies on healthcare. We have to identify and eliminate the obstacles and barriers to healthcare for the disabled. Improve healthcare coverage and affordability for persons with disabilities. We have to train the healthcare people to include the disabled person, and also we have to improve the delivery of services for the disabled person. Now continuing with action programs. Fifth one is to empower persons with disabilities to take control over their own healthcare decisions. Prohibit discriminatory practices in health insurance, and we have to promote health insurance coverage for assistive products and rehabilitation services. And finally, we have to improve the research and data collection to monitor, evaluate, and strengthen the health system to include and deliver the best for the persons with disabilities. In the previous slides, we have mentioned about the visible and the invisible disabilities. These are the specified disabilities in India as per the RPWD Act 2016. The major new inclusions are autism spectrum disorder, muscular dystrophy, chronic neurological conditions, thalassemia, hemophilia, sickle cell disease, acid attack victims, Parkinson's disease, etc. Now, few words about invisible disabilities. Mental health problems like post-traumatic stress disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, eating disorders, anxiety disorders are also considered as invisible disability. Then chronic pain, fatigue, which includes fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, etc. Then in case of traumatic brain injury, mild traumatic brain injury will also have invisible disabilities. And neurological conditions like epilepsy, Alzheimer's disease, etc. also have invisible disabilities. Thank you.